Hi, welcome to 190 Page. I am Scott. I am doing a countdown of all the books I read in January from the worst to the first. I finished 29 books in January. As you will see, a lot of them were pretty easy books to read. I didn't read all of them in the month of January, but I did finish them. Probably a good five or six I started in December. Also, those weren't the only things I read, but they were the only things I completed. If you want to know what other things I am reading, there's a video that I will put up here talking about the books that I am working on for this year, most of which I have started reading in some form or another. But let's go ahead and get started on the list. Coming in at number 29 is The Turning Tides of Us by Lacey Gold. This book, quite honestly, is a bit surprising for me because last year I read, I think, everything of Lacey Gold's that had been published up to that point. And one thing I had said about her is that when it comes to sapphic books, she is probably the most consistent writer that I've read. I've never given her a 5-star, but I've given her plenty of 4.5 stars, plenty of 4 stars. Probably her average overall is somewhere in the 4 range. And, even writers who I've given 5 stars to, I have other books that are pretty low down for them. And her output is probably somewhere in 18 to 20 books at least. So I've read that many, and I think the lowest I've given has been a 3.5 star, and that's until now. This one was a 2-star for me. One thing that I like about Lacey Gold generally is that she doesn't do the things that you expect. The breakups for silly reasons, or characters doing things that are kind of tropey. If she does something tropey, she does a twist on it. And I just didn't get this here. Basically, two women, one older, another younger. The older builds like resorts. Well, they both build resorts, but one works for like a huge company, and the other one, the younger one, works basically for herself, and she builds these eco-friendly type of resorts. And the thing that I really dislike in romance books is when the author basically decides, okay, this character is always right, this character is always perfect, this character is always wrong. I don't see that in Lacey Gold books until this one. And it's pretty much, I forget their names, but Evelyn, the older woman, she's always wrong about everything. And she's always getting shit from people, especially her spoiled ass daughter, who is like complaining that Evelyn doesn't tell her stuff, whereas she's keeping her own stuff away from her mother. Didn't like the kid. And Evelyn's father is having a relationship with a 28-year-old. Evelyn is almost 50. So her father has to be somewhere around 70. And people are like, love is love. It's like, okay, yeah, I mean, 70 and 28 is still, but yeah, that does happen. But for a daughter to be like, I don't know if I trust that makes perfect sense. Why are you giving your shit about it? And also, I don't feel like the author edited well, because at one point, the younger woman, Val, oh no, Val is 28, because she's the same age as her Evelyn's father's girlfriend, but Evelyn's daughter at one point is 25, and at another point she is 32. And I believe Evelyn's supposed to be 47, 48, meaning she had the kid when she was 15 or 16, which can happen, but the way that the story describes it, it doesn't put it across like that. I just thought this was an anomaly from Lacey Gold. And overall, it's not the worst sapphic romance I've read, but it's definitely the worst I've read from Lacey Gold. And getting something as bad as that from her is more disappointing, which is why I ranked it even lower than I might have. Number 28 is Deck the Palms by Kat Jackson. Kat Jackson, no experience with her at all. Allison has moved to Clearwater Beach. She meets Drew, and Drew, quite honestly, is a pain in the ass. And she's like, I don't want to be involved with you. It's like, okay, fine, don't be involved, but don't. She's got kind of this passive aggressive thing, but it's all aggressive passive aggressiveness, and just really put me off. Last year I did a very good job of DNFing books. I don't know that I'm doing as good a job here because I haven't. I don't know if I'm doing as good a job this year because I haven't DNF'd anything yet. I feel like I should have DNF'd this one because I was just annoyed with the characters. Maybe I should have DNF'd the Lacey Gold one, but I kept expecting what I knew from Lacey Gold. Number 27 is Second Chances by Emmy Tudor. It's the first of two books called Second Chances that I have in here. Pam works for an organization that helps abuse women. She helps save this woman who happens to be the mother of somebody she was attracted to back in school, although she kind of blew her off. And this is basically them getting closer together again, even though they weren't really something back then, because Pam was kind of she was straight at the time. And also Casey was known as a bit of a player, or at least Pam thought she was. This was fine. It was just, honestly, it was poorly written. I understand that some of these authors self-publish these books or don't get a lot of editorial help, and it's evident, and it kind of ruins the enjoyment of a book for me, even if I'm enjoying the plot, which there are good parts of this plot, but it was just so poorly edited. Commas exist for a reason. Number 28 is For Old Time by Lynn Dennison. This is actually the second book in the Chasely saga. The first book, which we will talk about later, was published, I believe, in 2007, and I believe this one was published after 2020. So it's like a decade and a half. And it's about, basically in the 1960s, Laura works for a family after her parents pass away within a certain time frame of each other. And she meets Rosemary, the daughter of the family, and Rosemary is a lesbian. Laura is sheltered, and they develop a relationship, and things happen. And on its own, it's not bad. The problem is that the first book in the series tells us pretty much everything that happens in this book in that book. The only thing that's really new in this book is Rosemary and Laura meeting again years later. But that's kind of the beginning and ending of the book. There's this middle part, over 200 pages long, that is basically just expanding on what we already know from the first book. And a lot of what we know from the first book isn't necessarily, not something I necessarily want to read in a romance. Although there's nothing graphic in there, there are things that happen that I already know are going to happen because I read the first book. And it's like, so I'm just dreading that. And although it's not graphic, as I said, I still know it's coming. So that's a lot of what ruined it for me. If I had, for some reason, read this book first, and if you have the opportunity, I would suggest, even though what happens in here gives a little bit away of what happens in the first book, it'd be better for you to read this book first and the other one second. Our second chances book, this time by C.K. Martin, is at number 25. Amber dies, and Death comes to get her, and Death lets Amber know, you've led a shitty life. You're a shitty person. But, you accidentally saw me once we were kids, and I made you stick around for 11 hours. So I'm going to give you 11 hours to basically go apologize to everybody you need to. And it's kind of like this shitty, like, this is your life. This is why you suck. And it's like, in the spoilers, Amber and Death kind of like each other. But it's kind of like, you say she's a shitty person. Why do you like her? But I could see this being more enjoyable if it was written a little bit differently. And it does one of those things that I really dislike. I understand it, I guess, but there's an erasure of memory for people in it. So, like, things that happen in the novel didn't actually happen. It's like, well, I'm so glad I read that. I really dislike that trope. Number 24 is How to Get a Girlfriend. How to Get a Girlfriend When You're Dead by Angela McKenna. Allie dies. Pretty much. She dies, but she's still there. She's turning into a demon. She's got her best friend Char there. She's been in love with Char forever. The romance really plays a backseat to the whole demon and having to save her soul and fight other demons and stuff with her mom too. It was okay, just not my... Number 23 is Choose You by Melissa Therese. I have read a lot of Melissa Therese books. This is a sequel to Study You. Finn and Gillian are a couple. Gillian's a professor, Finn's a student. Forbidden love kind of thing. They get together. But then Gillian's no longer teaching her until, per this book, the study plan gets changed and she has to teach Finn again, and Finn decides just to break up, and then is a huge bitch about breaking up, and Gillian, and I was just like, Study You wasn't one of my favorite Melissa Therese books. Anyways, especially there are books of hers that I like less than Study You, but they were all published years ago. Like any of the books she's written recently, like within the last 7 or 8 years, I enjoy more than Study You. And I think this is worse than Study You. I, it's like there was really no reason to write this book because it's just like it's basically like Study You and Choose You were just a long novel in the breakup was the like we have to break up for some reason for us to get together, and it's just like no, I'm bored, it's boring. Number 22 is Puppy Love by Sage Donald. Greta gets a puppy, can't leave it alone. She has a friend named Chloe. Chloe is straight. They grow closer together. It's fine, but it's just like I don't know why this novel is so long. I gotta be honest, I finished this book like a month ago. I barely could remember it until I looked up the synopsis on Amazon, and it's like I remember it a little. I remember the beginning, and I remember the end, and I remember a little. Oh, because like Greta was dating, I think, Chloe's sister for a time. Was it her sister or was it family member? I think it was a sister, and that didn't work out, but they were fine. But yeah, it's just not very memorable. Number 21 is Sunset and Other Dangerous Things by Danny Frank. Ashley is a vampire. And for some reason, that's not really fully explained in the book. Vampires have to belong to a family, or witches will kill them. And also, for some reason, vampires can't have attachments to humans. Not really explained. I mean, I understand a little bit because at one point they were going to fake Ashley's death because Ashley, I think at that point, had been a vampire for 12 years. She's technically 32, but she was turned when she was 20. So fake her death so her family won't wonder about her. But it's just like it's like all human attachment basically, and I just never really got that. The relationship was fine. It was cute in some ways, but the whole human attachment and witches versus vampires thing just didn't do anything for me. Number 20 is Girlfriend for Christmas by Monica Benitez. I am not going to try to pronounce the main character's first name because I will ruin it badly. Monica Benitez is, I believe, a Spanish writer, so her books are translated, I believe. But the main character goes to her parents' house for Christmas. Her brother is there with his new girlfriend, even though he's kind of a player type. Main character finds herself attracted to the girlfriend, and the girlfriend is giving kind of signals that she's also attracted, and so the sister has to deal with that. And it was fine. I enjoyed it was when it was just okay. I'll try to pronounce it. Begonia. It's Begon with the little tilde. I don't think it's tilde. A. So Begonia in Nareda. When it's just the two of them, it's great. The parents, the mother particularly, I did not care for at all. And the brother was kind of tropey. Number 19 is No Strings by Lucy Bexley. I have seen this book a lot, and I did not get it because, based on the cover, which you've seen, I thought it was a vampire novel. It's not. That's a puppet. Elsie does a puppet show, and after the owner of the production company dies, people are trying to push her out of her own show that she started. But there's also Jones, the owner's daughter, who is trying to run things well. her stepmother has gone for a mental break after the death of her husband. The stepmother is close to her age. And Jones and Elsie are attracted to each other, but also two very different people. I don't know if I necessarily buy the relationship, and the side characters did not do anything for me. Thought it was written well, but the story overall was like, eh. Number 19 is So Not My Type by Dana Hawkins. Sophie Black works at a Seattle ad agency. She's worked her way up to where she's at. The CEO's daughter, Ella, gets a job there, and they're pretty much at odds. Sophie doesn't like her, doesn't like the nepotism, doesn't like how Ella comes across. So they're at cross purposes there. Grow attracted to each other, blah, 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 blah. It's kind of, this is my third Dana Hawkins book. It's kind of typical for a Dana Hawkins book. You kind of see it with each one of those. Not so much the first one, a little bit less, which I'm blanking on the name of that one. But definitely in the second one, there are some mental health issues that come up in here that I thought were handled fairly well. I enjoyed the father that I didn't think I was going to enjoy. I didn't really care for the mother that much, and I'm talking about Ella's mother. Overall, a perfectly fine, serviceable 3.5-star book. And that was number 18. Did I say it was number 18? Number 17 is The Mrs. Claus by Bette Milner. Jody has to charm a billionaire who basically has a whole bunch of different people coming to a resort to pitch to her, but she's eccentric, so she basically will only talk to married people who bring their spouse. So Jody has to fake being married to her friend Kim, and we find out at some point during it that Kim used to be attracted to Jody. And of course, there's the relationship. There's also people who are suspicious of them. It's a lot more of a slow burn than I was expecting. So if you're expecting like down and dirty business in there, it's not really what it is. Some of the ancillary characters are tropey, but overall a pleasant read. Number 16, not a sapphic romance. It's Piccadilly Gym by P.G. Wodehouse. It's somewhat of a sequel to The Little Nugget. Ogden Ford, the 11-year-old boy in The Little Nugget, is now 14. People still try to kidnap him. His mother still babies him, but now we have Jimmy, who is the stepson of the sister of Ogden's mother, Nesta. And he's kind of a raconteur, always, for some reason that I don't fully get, because nobody in his family is famous or well known. He is always in the newspapers. He's in London and he's in New York newspapers. Never fully explain why. But he meets the daughter of Nesta's husband and falls in love with her immediately, as is done in Wodehouse books. And then discovers that she hates him, except she doesn't know he is him. Even though they met years ago, he interviewed her about her book of poetry, and then he trashed her book of poetry. And she has carried this hate for him for a long time, but doesn't recognize him. And he falls in love with her right away, but doesn't recognize her. Okay. Uh, then there's mistaken identity, mistaken identity about a mistaken identity. There's detectives. There's explosives. There's an engagement to another man. Why? I don't know. Because that man is not who he is pretending to be. So why is he getting engaged to her? It doesn't seem to serve his purpose any. Also, a lot of humor in here. Fairly misogynistic, even for a P.G. Wodehouse book. Kind of caveman mentality that Jimmy has at the end there. But, you know, if you want to know more about Piccadilly Jim, we do have our podcast that I do with my daughter, I'll Be Dashed, or Woodhouse Podcast. We talk about that. I don't know if it will be up by the time this video is up, but it will be up soon. Number 15 is Everything We Never Said by L.A. Wright. Polly discovers her husband is cheating, so she leaves Australia to go to London or to England. I don't know if it's London or not. Kind of escape from that, and then she thinks about her best friend that she used to have, and basically looks her up. A little creepy, stalkerish. I mean, especially considering her ex-best friend is in Canada now. She's in Canada, doesn't have the greatest marriage herself, and it's kind of a trend with the books in here. But like the relationship between the two main characters is fine. A lot of the side characters, especially like Polly's mom and her ex-husband, but obviously, or soon to be ex-husband, obviously he's supposed to be a jerk. But now I'm talking about it, I wonder if I should have ranked this lower. Let's say, okay, technically 15, but I probably would put Piccadilly Gem ahead of this. Number 14, The Warrior Within by Brooke Campbell. Libby struggles with, I forget what it's called, but it's basically like, it's kind of like an arthritic thing. Ankylosing spondylosis. That is way off. That is not what it is. I know it's what Zach from the Try Guys has. But it affects her health quite a bit. She meets a woman in a bar one night. The woman is really attracted to her. Oh yeah, the woman, it turns out, is a vampire. In this book, there's a sequel that I have read, but I read it in February. I really like Libby in this book. I have to say, I was not that fond of Jo. Jo is a vampire. And yes, she's very attracted to Libby and loves Libby, but she's also a very controlling person and one of those people who decides she's going to do what's right and has decided that she knows what's right. It doesn't really matter what the other person thinks. That's fine with this novel because Libby is able to stand up for herself in many circumstances. Completely different in the second novel. The second novel will not rank as highly, but for a vampire novel, when it comes to romances, I don't often enjoy And I say that knowing that I have many supernatural type novels in here, but I don't really enjoy stuff like that too often uh, when I'm reading romances. Number 13 is Shifting Gears by Jazz Forrester. Eleanor is the CEO of a company. She is working herself to death, basically, and her friends basically push her to take kind of a working vacation. She goes to a place where her father, who has died, who she's taken over for, kind of screwed the town over there. So when she's there, she's not really letting people know who she is because they talk mad shit about her company. But she meets a mechanic, Danny, there. Danny's very laid back. She is almost immediately attracted to Danny. Danny seems nice and friendly and seems to be attracted to her too. And their romance grows over time. And of course, at some point, there's going to be the discovery of who she actually is and how that's going to affect her relationship with Danny, her relationship with the town. Um, Also, her board wants her to come back, wants her to do stuff, all this stuff. Just very nice relationship between the two. That's the main thing going on. The few questionable things uh, from Danny, I would say personally, I could see where it wouldn't bother other people, but there's kind of like, well, but I'm one of those people who also feel a lie by omission is still a lie. So that's kind of a pet peeve thing of mine. So if that's not something that bothers you, nothing about Danny would probably bother you in this. And also, it's okay for main characters to have flaws. Number 12 is Without a Plan by Donna J. This is essentially a rewrite of a older novel she had published, which I have never read. But Zoe is in New Zealand after coming from Canada. She came there with her girlfriend. Something happened between the two of them, and she essentially escaped from her girlfriend. And she meets Claire, who takes her in. Claire has her own issues that she has, and they're both somewhat timid about relationships for their own very different reasons, but they're attracted to each other. It's another older woman, younger woman, although I don't believe the gap is too big. And it's basically them growing closer together. And it's a Don and Jay book, which means there's a little bit of Dom sub uh, light. I mean, not light, but the descriptions of scenes is somewhat light, not heavy like you might find in a Hildred Billings or an Anna Stone book. The relationship is just it's good. I would almost say this is low stakes. There's nothing too drastic except for a scene or two. And if you care for the characters, you'll enjoy the book. And I like the characters. Number 11, The Librarian's Gargoyle by Evelyn Shine. This is another supernatural book. Again, I don't really read these very often. I am one of those people, I have Stephen King books back there. If I'm fine with supernatural and horror and stuff like that, but I kind of want it to be its own thing. But this one, it's a woman falls in love with the gargoyle. Sorta. The gargoyle can take the shape of a human woman. Uh, so, and then there's kind of the whole gothic feel in somebody's trying to take over the library for reasons which we'll discover. Honestly, to me, personally, the supernatural part is just kind of a background thing. And the relationship between these two people is the important thing, and I think that is very good. There are going to be sequels to this, uh, apparently having to do with characters we met in this. Those I'm kind of like, I don't know, but hey. But this was honestly very sweet, maybe a little creepy if you look into it too in depth, but I mean, if you can get over a stone gargoyle and a human woman getting together, some of these stuff that might creep you out would be like, well, I got over this, I can get over that. Number 10 is Beyond Her Manor by Emily Banting. This is the third in a series, although all different main characters. I know one of them was Reality Check. I can't remember what the name of the other one was. But Jillian Carmichael has lost her husband and then finds out not only has she lost her husband, but she's lost her estate, Kingsford Manor, and somebody ends up buying it. Viola Barkley, who's a classical singer, and Jillian kind of still lives on the estate, except now she's living in a cottage on the estate. And of course, she's not pleased that someone else is living in her house. And it's not her fault that she's no longer living there. It was her husband's fault. And the two of them are at odds until they're not. It's not really Grumpy Sunshine, because I wouldn't really say Viola is sunshine. Obviously, Jillian is a bit grumpy for good reason. But I enjoy the relationship between the two of them. I also kind of enjoy the whole inner workings of the small village and the gossip that's involved in there. I don't know if I would say that this is my favorite of the three books in this series, but it's definitely at least number 2, because I know I enjoyed the first one. The second one, I didn't enjoy as much, but I definitely like this one. I would have to go back and look back at the first one and see if I would like that one more or not. Number 9 is Rise by Lynette McCornan. Eliza is put in a fake relationship with Bear McKnight, an action star. She's an actress. She's closeted, and she finds herself attracted to Bear's sister. Bear has his own thing going on, doesn't mind that she's attracted to his sister. The relationship with the sister named Cat, Bear and Cat, but that's honestly the most ridiculous thing about this book. The relationship there is interesting. I think I have come close to my limit on Hollywood stories and agents and or managers trying to control actors in their personal lives. But this one was a good one at least. But yeah, I think I've come close to the limit on those. Number 8 is Past Remembering by Lynn Dennison. This is the first book in the Chasely saga. Asha is hired by the Chasely family for a genealogy. She meets one of the employees there, and she's a bit standoffish, and but they're attracted to each other. And this is where we get the whole background with Laura and Rosemary. Slight spoiler alert: Laura is Asha's stepmother. That's why we get the whole story there. like I said, if you're planning to read both books, I would start with For Old Time first. Or just read this one and don't read that one. If you have Kindle Unlimited, I think it's free. So you could just read this one, then read like the first and last chapter of that one. Because everything in between those is already talked about in this book. But this one was very pleasant. I liked it, liked the characters, and I didn't know what was happening. Unlike For Old Time, where I knew pretty much everything that was happening. Number 7 is Unexpected Harmony by Violet Morley. Aspen goes to Malibu after an embarrassing situation with her now ex-girlfriend. And she meets Zoe there. Zoe is very musically gifted. Aspen is a singer. And Zoe and her family do like gardening and stuff, so they work on Aspen's garden, and Aspen is pretty much attracted to Zoe right away. Zoe is resistant for reasons of her own. This is another book in which mental health is examined. I like the relationship between the two. This one, there's a manager, and yeah, this one, the whole manager situation kind of pushed me over the brink. It was fine in Rise, but it was just too much in this one. But other than the manager, which didn't take as much space as I feared, this was a great novel. Number 6 is The Plus One by M.J. Duncan. I've read a few books by M.J. Duncan. This is a little bit different. This one is Christmas related. It's a lot lighter than the other books I've read. Now, the other books I've read have been in the same series, the Symphony series, I think. And the two books that I read in there are both very long and very involved and a little bit heavier than this. Eve has to go to her parents' gala. She was going to bring her friend with her to keep her parents off her ass about her relationships and all. But he isn't able to come, so he asks his cousin to do so. Aspen. Aspen is a girl. Eve didn't know that. And, you know, they grow closer together, blah, blah, blah. It's just a very fun novel. The mother sucks in the book, but hey. Oh, and the ex-fiance also sucks. Was he ex-fiance? Yeah, he was an ex-fiance. But just an enjoyable Christmas read. Kind of low stakes again. Kind of insta love also. If that's not something you enjoy, probably avoid this book. But I enjoyed it. Number 5 is Beyond the Trail by J.A.E. This is set in the 1800s. Luke Hamilton is actually Lucinda Hamilton, but after her mother died when she was younger, she basically dressed and presented and to pretty much everybody who met her acted as a man. And so she's going to Oregon and she decides to get married because that will be better for her when she goes there. But what she does is she marries a woman who works at a bordello, and basically it's a business deal between the two, although Nora doesn't know that Luke is a woman. And it's basically trail across, and Nora also has a daughter. Trial and tribulations of that, and possibly being discovered. Also, at one point, somebody who had been to the brothel recognizes Nora, has to do with that. Uh, it's not an easy romance because, one, Nora doesn't know that Luke is a woman for a large portion of the book. And when she discovers it, it's not like, oh, okay, I can deal with that. It's like, well, lots of things have flipped. uh, but for something set in the 1800s, and obviously at that time, a lesbian relationship isn't something that was common. I think it's handled very well, and I can buy it. Number 4 is January by Nicole Pylon. Nicole Pylon is writing a New Orleans series, 12 books, January through December. The first one, Kyle goes to New Orleans to find out stuff about her grandfather after basically discovering her mother has been lying to her. Her mother is a real piece of shit. That's not something that's surprising as soon as you meet her. So she goes there. She meets Melinda, who's basically a tour guide, and develop a relationship. But obviously, Kyle is just there for a little while. She's not going to stay in New Orleans, right? So it's kind of like, oh, we only have this limited amount of time. Nicole Pylon has done other city series: Boston, Chicago, Lake Tahoe, I think, San Francisco. And I've read the first 2 in this one. I don't know how the trend is going to go, but I will say this has started better than any of the other ones I know. Now, there are some books in her series that are some of my favorite books that I've read in the sapphic romance field, and neither one of the ones I've read for this one I would qualify it as that, but 2 very, very good books. We'll give you a little bit preview for what next month's rating will be. The Story in Your Eyes by J.D. Lorian. Greer and Lisa. Basically, Greer needs a roommate who knows sign language. Lisa is an artist. They both have their own issues, their own struggles. There's like Lisa has lost her job. She has some mental health issues that affected her. There are also the use of side characters in this one is very good, even though some of the side characters I hated, but it makes sense that you hate them. I think also this is also set during the time of COVID, so you get 2 people that are basically forced together in this situation, trying to struggle with being with each other, being in their own lives, their own issues. Bit of a slow burn, I would say. Generally liked it. Yeah, I liked it. It feels like it's open for sequels, although probably with some of the other characters. I have not checked whether or not those are already out or are coming out. But very good. Number 2 is New Beginnings by Lily Seabrook. This was a welcome book for me because the last book I read was A Break in Communications, I think in November, and I really disliked that book. So much so that I skipped the next book that she had coming out because it was a sequel to that, and I was really angry about that book. But this one is a great book. Madeline meets Sapphire. Sapphire has ran away from her family. Her family is very rich, controlling. I will say her mother is controlling. Her father, well, mentioned often, never actually appears in the novel. Also, have really sheltered her so that basic things she doesn't really know how to do. So when she runs away, she's of age. When she runs away, she really doesn't know how to survive because she's never had to. But her family is not accepting of her sexuality. Luckily, she does meet Madeline, and Madeline helps her. These are just two very lovely characters. The problem I had with the last book, A Break in Communications, was that almost every character in that book was unpleasant. Except for the mother, pretty much everyone in here, even the somewhat obnoxious best friend, everyone in here is pleasant, and I understand them, and people aren't being dicks just to be dicks. It was really enjoyable to read a Lily Seabrook book that I could get into. And I talked at the beginning about Lacey Gold is the most consistent, not counting that one book. Lily Seabrook has had books. I've given her a 5-star before. She has had books that have been great, and she has had books that have sucked. I wouldn't call her completely inconsistent, but there have been some real stinkers in the mix here, but this one is very good. And number 1 is Hidden Truth by JAE. It is actually book 3 of the Oregon series, which Beyond the Trail was the first book. Book 3, the second book is actually just like, I think it's a book of short stories. This one also has Nora and Luke in it, but it also has Amy, Nora's daughter, who is grown up now. Amy doesn't really care for men, but then somebody comes to basically a mail order bride for the foreman there. Rika, she comes. The foreman has to go off with Luke for a reason, so Rika's there. Oh, Rika's actually not the mail order bride. Mail order bride was her friend who died, and she basically took her place. Rika and Amy get closer together, and then there's also the issue of, at one point, Luke's secret comes up, as well as Nora's past, and who Luke and Nora are to each other, and the truth about Amy and, I can't remember her sister's name, but her sisters, their fathers. So it's not just Amy and Rika, it's not just Luke and Nora, it's also this whole family dynamic. I wouldn't call Jay as consistent as Lacey Gold, but fairly consistent. I've even read some of her Supernatural series, which, like I said, I don't tend to do. But yeah, that was my favorite book of January. 4.5 stars. Nothing got a 5-star this month, but we still got 11 months to go. So that is it for January. Please like and subscribe, leave a comment, and I will talk to you next time.